Alright. Well, we made it. The third episode of this series I already regret naming, but enough doubts and fears that I should be explaining to my therapist because 3 is truly a magic number. And to celebrate this terrific trifecta, I thought that we could discuss 3 important entities that I believe express how film has evolved, for better or for worse.
If for any reason you're not completely satisfied, I hate you.
Figures so important that their names when spoken bring about so many iconic images that I'd sooner rewrite the history books so that they would be on the front page. Those names would be King Kong, Godzilla, and Big Man Japan.
I lied.
It's a kaiju double feature to celebrate not only the new remake, but the fact that Ultraman is getting a new film as well. And let's pray to Japanese Christ once again that it doesn't get delayed indefinitely. It's already hard enough waiting for an Evangelion torrent. There's been so much kaiju-related news lately that it's almost unbearable, but welcoming. The plastic past is so important to film history, and to see it move on to bigger and better things is a beautiful sight to behold. No need to worry about toku droughts when every studio is either trying to remake, remodel, recast, or re-release some piece of memorabilia that your dad called you retarded for liking. CGI has put an end to techniques that do bring about images of nostalgia, and we can marvel at the craftsmanship, but at the end of the day, this is the future.
And it looks fucking awesome! I mean, did you see that punch? Oh my god, she's so smooth!
Did anyone link me the Evangelion sub?
Fuck Pacific Rim!
Get fucking Jaguar!
Anyways, it's time to pay our respects to the classics, the true art that is older kaiju films. They did put the entire Showa series on Criterion, so these things must be seen as masterpieces, or someone on the cleanup team is just a really big nerd. Film morality aside, hearing about this film back in the 60s must have knocked the cheese off a few crackers. Two titans, the mistreated monk versus the Armageddon asexual. It ain't yo daddy's Frankenstein meets the Wolfman. These guys ain't meeting. They're fucking. And isn't that the true magic behind versus films? Besides the gay undertones? To see two characters we have grown to love and root for, and then side with one to beat the other living shit out of the other? Again, it's good to revisit because of the upcoming remake, but it also gives me a chance to talk about my autistic passions. If there's ever a movie or a show that has monsters doing flips and tricks, you know I'll have to be rocking out with my dick. Word goes into these types of creature features from all corners of the world. Think about the 50s sci-fi boom. Giant creatures of varying degrees of size and quality, models pinpoint accurate to their real-life counterparts, and noisy bitches. Speaking of boom, Godzilla comes onto the screen, showing us the horrors of nuclear devastation hidden under the veil of just another monster movie. Destruction has never been seen on the screen to this earth-shattering magnitude, and people took notice. 11% of the Japanese population saw the film in its original run, and less than 2 years later, America added an English-speaking cast to the film's American release. See, America was still making foreign films terrible even back then. With that much success and critical acclaim, a sequel had to be made. Would it capture the original's intense message and be focused on the trials of tragic side characters? Fuck you. To backtrack, we have Kong in 1933. Not only one of the most influential figures in pop culture, but one of the most successful films at the time. So successful, the studios wanted to shove out a sequel. Perfectly complementing the anti-capitalist message of the first film, I might add. Jumping forward, we got Touhou Studios being like,
Okay, let's make another Godzilla film, cause that's what makes us the big bucks.
Yeah. That's all fine and good, but who he gonna fight? The starfish people from Warning from Space?
Too small.
Okay, how about Rodan?
Committed suicide.
The Yeti from Half Human?
Isn't that just King Kong?
The Invisible Avenger?
Didn't we fire you like a week ago?
And thus King Kong vs. Godzilla was born. East meets West, and only one will be going home. It's a match made in heaven to see two iconic characters duke it out, showing off whose property is the true champion, even if one country has more creative control. That is one of the problems with versus movies. Who will win? Or an even better question, how do we avoid a winner?
Oh, I bet Kong has no chance.
I'll toss you. Heads for King Kong. Tails.
You can debate power stats or why you think your favorite is the best, But in the end, studios know that they can't kill off a well-known character, unless it ties into the next film. And Touhou should be thanking their angry gods that Godzilla was still being portrayed as a villain. Audience could have a side to root for that wasn't a walking metaphor. Godzilla stood for how humanity could end up destroying itself by way of radioactive warfare, and how many lives could be lost.
Then you have discussed using the atom bomb.
Possibly. As a last resort.
He's portrayed much differently now. Godzilla's the original redemption arc, from torching cities to trying his darn best to protect them. So it seems sensible that Kong would be up for a fight against a creature who has a track record for burying bitches. You could say this is a reason for the remake not having as much punch. As silly as it sounds, the original had stakes.
How come your boyfriend's steak is bigger than your brother's?
If Godzilla wins this one, that's it! Game over, man! Pray that they find your body, cause this fucker's gonna bury everything in rubble! With the remake, we can infer that Godzilla is Mechagodzilla in disguise, due to many hints in the trailer and also the fact that it was a reveal in the original movies as well. Because at this point, we all know Hollywood is a recycle bin of old ideas. But I'm sure in the newest outing, we'll have a much different take on the story. Hopefully not polluted by just ugly child actors. The next problem with the original, and a statement that can be applied to most Godzilla films, they can be so fucking boring. While we will be checking out the Universal edit, because of how readily available it is, and the one that I have seen the most, even Criterion makes it so you can only watch this one. The entire Showa series can be categorized by how often human characters overload the plot. Again, nothing has changed. I can only pinpoint a few that escape this void of pointless side plots, failed comedy, and a loss of roots. You can shout all you want about how Godzilla is nothing more than the B-movie of the week, or another item to put next to the Funko Pop wall in some man-child's room. But more often than not, these films try to at least try to emphasize some problem that is happening in the world. Pollution, political corruptness, crime, world peace, and keeping the bloodline alive. And even to this day with films like Shin Godzilla that do their damned best to still get across a message of destruction, while being entertaining as hell is quite the accomplishment in my book. But then again, this channel is built on autism and the thirst for XD random moments that'll have you saying schlock until your head spins off and flies into your own ass. A lot of the films I enjoy belong to a personal mental toy box. There's a certain style over substance that keeps me coming back to relive the visuals again, whether that be because of well-crafted sets or characters that I would never want to leave behind. Godzilla is made for such a place, where they can be entertaining as hell without having to sacrifice itself to a message all the time. Remember, filmmaking will always remain a visual medium, and the exception to this rule is the fact that stories need to be told, whether conveying a message or immersing a wide audience by way of escapism. What the fuck am I going on about? Oh right, Godzilla's fucking radical! There's something great that comes from seeing a big black monster completely rail a few skyscrapers, and maybe a few historical landmarks without having to feel any historical repercussions. To Japan, King Kong vs. Godzilla could be seen as nothing more than a friendly punch-out. A fight between icons rather than a fight between those ever-so-present nukes. These two always seem destined for one another, with both being one of the highest-grossing films of its time and having a shitty sequel that nobody remembers for how poorly it performed. Some cosmic force was bringing them together, and it was up to Touhou to make an entertaining film that would capture the eyes of audience. Before I say anything negative about the story, let's talk about the director. Ishiro Honda is probably one of the smartest directors of his time, and a creative force that put Godzilla on the map. The guy worked under Akira Kurosawa, for fuck's sake. He's also written my personal favorites of the franchise, so there's a gleam in my eye for the man and his works. You could most likely blame the studio for most Godzilla films for having uninteresting human characters that break the pace, or Godzilla's development into a children's hero. Funny enough, the only times Honda wrote for the franchise was when he was either trying to start it or end it. I do not in any way blame him for how these movies play out. Him and IHVE are what was keeping the franchise afloat. Enough history and personal vendetta.
Who out there is watching our show? Nobody. Because it's dull and boring and without imagination. That's why.
With the film being sort of a collaboration between coasts, of course there were going to be two different versions made. I don't know how much is different between Universal's version and Touhou. From what I've heard, the only differences are the music score, which is just recycled music from Universal's backlog. Nice way to save a buck, huh? And that Kong is the only one that cries out at the end of the film. Also, don't mind the English-speaking reporter that explains us what the hell is happening in that crazy land of Japan. This harkens back to Raymond Bird's performance in the American release of Godzilla, where that felt more tacked on to the actor's history and how blatant that edit was. Here, the reporter is a part of the world. Godzilla and other Touhou series such as Ultraman have always struck me as pre-Star Trek. Star Trek had pined itself on the message of peace, where all races and languages had come together to battle new foes from beyond the stars. But with shows like Ultraman, Prime Directive is not always a requirement. So to have some honky spoon-feed us everything might seem a little strange when you're not a Touhou connoisseur like myself. The majority of other Godzilla films in the franchise devolve into kindergarten science lectures anyways. I mean, these films are made for children, right? Right? We even get a cameo by a Hispanic heritage. Maybe all this diverse casting from America was to distract from all the blackface that is featured. I mean, America wouldn't do something as racist as that, especially in the 60s.
We forgot to bring candy. Oh, your mommy. You better not smoke it around home.
Apart from racial tensions, there is a story. If I had to describe the story, I'd say that it's just a mashup of the original King Kong and Godzilla Raids Again. There's a mysterious creature named King Kong. Godzilla returns! Some chowderhead wants King Kong. We got to destroy Godzilla again. Racism. Oh, looks like they gotta fight. While it may be a sequel for Godzilla, it's a full-fledged reboot for Kong, and I do mean full-fledged. Skull Island's been renamed, Kong's bigger, and he's now a full-blown drug addict. Two reporters are tasked by their stereotype of a boss to track down Kong and bring him back to Japan to boost TV ratings. Think of it as a precursor to the giant inflatable ape. It's a smooth transition to make a familiar plot seem all the more modern and new. Meanwhile, Godzilla breaks from his icy tomb while indirectly causing a submarine full of honkies to die in a horrible fire. Now we leave Godzilla to fuck around for a while until we can get King Kong to take the needle out of his arm.
It's a girl.
Let's go! That's another problem that spurs from Versus movies. There's trouble when the audience keeps asking themselves, when are they gonna fight? 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 When are they gonna fight?
When are they gonna get to the fireworks factory?
Help comes in the form of smaller battles that keep a hold on the audience interest. While on Blasian Island, we are treated to an octopus battle and a song. On the other side, we get one Godzilla battle and that's about it. Until we get into the first encounter, you have to sit through a lot of faff in between.
It's only a lizard. Throw it down.
There's exploring the island to find Kong, dull romantic subplot so we can have a woman for Kong to grab at the end, and other scenes that just go on for way too long. Like the movie, I'm gonna prolong the fight with another side note. I'm starting to get to the bottom of this iceberg of a movie. It's no secret Godzilla films usually contain a fair amount of commentary, whether apparent or not. Here, it's very apparent.
To you?
Your airplane, it crashed.
I missed it. The boss kept me working. Who is going to be responsible for King Kong? I am. My company owns him. Put my money on Kong. King Kong could kill us all. You wouldn't care. Publicity's all you want. Publicity!
Branching off the original message of King Kong, where man seeks to exploit nature for financial gain, but the comedic twist is sensed here with how overly goofy the characters are. Rather than coming off as some humorous comedy that chooses to critique the negative aspects of capitalism, it just comes off as silly. I have a theory that this is what was the start to the decline of Godzilla films being labeled more as family films.
Mommy, let's go see Godzilla.
Child, we're not going to a zoo. Hurry.
They tried in Godzilla vs. Mothra, but I feel any kind of message gets buried under the egg amusement park. So we got Godzilla kinda destroying Tokyo and King Kong trying to remain sober. Alright, Kong is now on the raft before hijinks awakens him and somehow teleports him to Godzilla. I imagine some producer was getting extremely impatient. Oh man, it's time for these destructive forces to finally duke it out, and it's over. 54 minutes of this hour-and-a-half movie, we waited for them to do a pretty gnarly game of Raft Wars. And after all that fighting, it's followed up by even more reporter talk. Where could this never-ending train ride be going? I'll tell ya, construction footage. Rather than moan endlessly about heavily edited footage, I'd like to commend the effects work of the film. Kong may look like shit, but Godzilla's looking clean compared to his last nightmarish outing, along with some great miniatures. Nothing can compare to the scale that Touhou brings when it comes to sets and creatures. What else were you gonna watch to fulfill your quench for some giant monster action? Gorgo? Reptilicus?
I didn't think so.
We get 2 failed attempts to stop Godzilla while sitting in the waiting room that is this film, along with Kong's pre- and post-nut dilemma and only minor destruction in between. Honestly, on my last attempt to watch the sequence of Kong not breaking tradition, I found myself unable to keep my eyes open, but when I opened my eyes, there was something truly incredible to behold. It's King Kong versus fucking Godzilla. While it looks like they're violently hugging each other throughout the fight, honestly, as cheesy as it sounds, this is freaking epic. No thinking gorilla versus power argument. These kings are using everything at their disposal in an effort to overthrow the other. The use of fire, that thankfully didn't leave anyone burnt into their own plastic, provides a perfect backdrop to this already heated battle. Along with a couple chuckle-worthy moments, it's just the sprinkles on the destroyed pagoda. I find myself not caring about who won, but what a great fight they both put up.
And strangely enough, we wish him luck on his long, long journey home.
Nah, just kidding, Godzilla won, you fucking idiot.
No more! I'm sick of Godzilla.